So I don't think David Calhoun is going to do anything radical here, but what Boeing needed right now is somebody with operational experience that will get a high volume product out the door on time without any flaws and will mend the relationship with the FAA. And you have that with the CEO, and you have a chairman who was formerly CEO of Continental Airlines, so that'll bring a good relationship with its customer base and also the lessors, which are 1/3 of the customers.
Mike, are we in uncharted territory here in terms of how this crisis is playing out and now the changes with leadership?
It's never happened before, and the change of the leadership is good. The problem we have is what's going to happen out there in the marketplace. I mean, airlines, if they don't want to go with Boeing, they can go with Airbus. Airbus has one production line they might be able to crank up called the A220. That may change things, but overall, until Boeing comes back up, the airline industry across the globe is going to be in slow growth.
Stephanie, I'm wondering, we're hearing more and more transports don't count because of the mess that Boeing is, because of the mess that GM, some others were. What do you think that's true? Got to look to some other sectors to get the canary in the coal mine?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to look at industrials as a whole. It's not just transports. And I would actually say that some of the machinery names are acting quite a bit better. I mean, look at Caterpillar every day, a little bit of green. Look at United Rentals. As to Boeing, I think this is the peak of bad news today, right? I mean, I know the stock is up, but this was bad news to lose a CEO. However, it clears the decks now, right? And I think that that's what this company needed. I think people were losing confidence. Investors were losing confidence. Right? The FAA certainly was losing confidence. The government is starting to lose confidence. So I think this is, now we have this put behind us, and you can kind of focus on, okay, next steps. And I think that the timing is obviously key. When they do get certified again, which I do believe they will, this stock goes a lot higher.
The way this typically works, Sheila, is new CEO comes in and kitchen sinks it, right? So should we be prepped for bad news in January?
We're already pricing in concessions doubling from what they announced in July, as well as the charges on the 737 MAX program. So we've already cut our profitability, and we've cut our free cash flow number by $55 over the next 3 years. So we're still pricing that in and maintaining our 420 price target by doing so.
And this is really a free cash flow story, 2023, right? And about $32 a share.
Exactly. It's about 2022, 2023, and how quickly Boeing could get rid of the inventory that it has, because it has 400 aircraft just sitting there consuming that inventory, when it liquidates it, when production starts back up, and when return to service starts back up.
Phil, has there been any kind of reaction on the heels of this news, either from suppliers or from the airlines?
Definitely from airlines. I've talked with a number of executives today, and everybody's saying the same thing is, look, I don't want to give my name. I don't want to go on the record. But let me tell you something. I heard from David Calhoun today, and boy, that was a nice phone call to get. And they understand that it doesn't mean that the MAX is going to be back in the air any sooner, but it helps to reach out to the customers. And it's not just Dave Calhoun who is doing this. It is Stan Deal, who's in charge of commercial airplanes. Greg Smith, the CFO, was also on the phone with key stakeholders today. Tim Keating, in charge of government operations out of Washington, D.C. And we've heard from a number of representatives on Capitol Hill who have said, we welcome the change at Boeing. I think this all falls under the umbrella of a new approach to doing business. Again, nobody's expecting miracles overnight, and nobody's saying that David Calhoun's going to come in and say all is well, but they do need to turn the corner, and this is the first step in doing that.
Mike, a new approach to business, but what does it mean in terms, at least getting into this point, what has it meant in terms of possible tailwind or increased business for Airbus?
Well, I think overall they could lose some customers. Look, it's not outside reality that Southwest might say, wait a minute, this single supplier may have to go away. But overall, let's keep in mind, in the U.S., it's been American, Southwest, United, and a little bit Alaska. They're the only ones that have been affected. And other than Southwest, they all have different access to airplanes. But I think going forward, if they can get this airplane up smoothly, which I think they will, it's going to take all year. But when they get it up smoothly, the U.S. airline industry is going to be a whole lot stronger than it was before.
Maybe the thing to watch out for now is a carrier saying we're standing by Boeing, right? Wouldn't that be a logical thing to have on your radar?
Yeah, you've seen sort of the carriers waver over the last couple of weeks, and the headlines got more negative. But we have a 4,500 backlog on the 737 MAX. All but 50 have not changed, so that was a very good sign, and maybe we'll see more supportive comments from the management teams coming out.
Phil, you're already starting to see some... Oh, go ahead.
No, let's keep in mind that there have been sales for the MAX. I mean, IAG, the parent of British Airways, did put in a 200 airplane order. The MAX is going to be here to stay. The question is, how much hit is it going to be on Boeing? But for the U.S., it hasn't been that big a hit, except for Southwest Airlines. and they may make some different fleet changes going forward.
So, Phil, I wanted to go back to the board of Boeing for a minute. There's already been some pushback. Ralph Nader, for example, came on the network earlier in the day, said the entire board needs to see an overhaul. Would you expect to see that there is going to be more pushback or maybe more critical, analysis of the composition of it?
Good question. I'm not expecting major turnover at the board level. I think now that you've got Larry Kellner, a longtime Continental executive who is going to be the chairman of the board, perhaps you will see him put out some kind of a clear statement in terms of here's the approach of the board. But look, we usually in these kinds of situations, you don't hear from the board very often after a CEO has changed here. But this is not a usual situation. Having said that, I do not expect big turnover on the board of directors at Boeing.
Sheila, before I wrap up this conversation, I'm going to take it back to defense for a minute, because part of the reason Boeing has aggressively been able to underbid competitors and win some of the most high-profile defense contracts in the last couple of years before all of the MAX stuff happened was because of the cash flow and the strength of the commercial business. What happens now to that piece of Boeing's portfolio?
It's flat. It doesn't move while the rest of defense is up 5%. No, I think what we're overlooking is the president signed a defense bill on Friday, and we have a defense budget that's $738 billion. And that brings me to my top pick, LHX in defense, and I think defense is set for a rally here. So on Boeing, the defense outlook is pretty flat. It's all about execution and how they execute on those 3 program wins.
Stephanie's laughing because she knows I like to talk about aerospace and defense.
We could talk about it all day long.
We could.
You and I. It could be our show.